All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick, live from Radio Row in wonderful Las Vegas, Nevada. I am wearing makeup. Drew isn't. Read into that what you will. We'll be here all week. Looking forward to it, Drew. What do you make of Vegas so far?
Lovely. The stars are out. A lot of fun people here already. It's going to be a crazy week. Obviously, it's been a long time coming, the NFL having a Super Bowl in Las Vegas. Vegas is obviously a perfect city for a destination event like this. Great. Everybody's taking great care of us here at NBC, so I'm in a great mood.
Huge result having Radio Row inside our hotel, Mandalay Bay, which I can't express what a delicious victory that is. Would you describe yourself as a Vegas guy?
We're going to find out.
Yeah.
I think the longest I've ever been here is probably 3 nights, so this is going to set a new record for me, and I'm going to do my best to keep it together.
Okay.
I always have fun when I'm here.
Yeah. The last time I was in Las Vegas, or one of the most recent times, was for a friend's 30th birthday, and I just recall after a long night having a very late breakfast the next day, at breakfast like 2 p.m. at a restaurant, as my friend was on the phone to JP Morgan Chase saying that he did not recognize these charges for a $3,400 ATM withdrawal from a location not to be disclosed. But that was very Vegas-y. And I'll never forget my friend saying, I think this might be fraud, which when you hear someone say, I think this might be fraud, it's like minus 2,000 to not be fraud. Was my big takeaway there. Anyway, today we're going to talk about Super Bowl. Naturally, we'll talk about some of the prop markets, side total, updated thoughts there, and then a quick look at some of the coaching hires and then the odds for next year's Super Bowl. We'll obviously break this game down from every possible angle over the next 5 days, but just macro at the moment, Drew. How have your thoughts changed over the past week or so since open?
Yeah, pretty interesting market. One-way action since the bottoming out around a pick has been on the Niners, pushing it out to 2. I doubt we go to 2.5 or 3, but maybe. I would definitely not go into 3. That would be a shocker. My fair neutral is 3, so I'm Niners or pass at this point. Total market has been bet up. You can still get 47.5 out there. If you look around, there are 48s popping. That makes sense. It's going to be an indoor Super Bowl. Everybody's healthy, so there's going to be a lot of potential for offense. The game itself, in the glow of the AFC-NFC championship game, it was pretty easy to be down on the Niners defense. That unit did not cover themselves in glory against the Lions. But having rewatched that game, I kind of want to give credit more to the Lions than I really want to hold it against the Niners defensively. On the flip side, I'm not really buying into this being some sort of revelatory growth out of the Kansas City offense. I think we know who they are. They're, Pat Mahomes is the greatest quarterback of this generation by margin, and he's capable of elevating that unit to where they can, make another Super Bowl. Just a really pretty impressive run. However, this is still a unit that has struggled mightily in the red zone throughout the balance of the season. This is still a unit that I think you have to have sincere questions about the ability for their pass catchers to either A, generate separation, or B, catch the football. They kind of have a little bit of a problem doing both of those things, and I don't think that gets fixed on the world's biggest stage. So, definitely kind of starting to entrench my opinion here that the Niners are the right side, and that this is going to be finally, a crowning moment for Shanahan, and a little bit of a sweet redemption for Brock Purdy, even though he will not be our MVP this year. I think he has a very real chance to be the Super Bowl MVP.
He's had a lot of arcs already in his career, young Brock Purdy, who obviously hasn't started that many games, but feels like people have changed their minds on him 2 or 3 times. And now I think he's at a slight rise in opinion just on how he closed the game against Detroit. Market movement in this one is somewhat interesting, opening effectively Niners minus 2.5, then the Chiefs get aggressively bet off the open, comes down to 1, and now kind of is settled at 2. Like, these movements don't really matter a ton. Like, the difference between 1 and 2.5 is not that substantial. And obviously this is it's a very liquid market now. You can basically bet whatever you want on the Super Bowl. So it's not like there is an egregiously wrong price, you would suspect. But the more I think about this game, the more I focus on the fact that I think that the Niners, like, you still have to, when you think about their defense, you still have to bake in that they were effectively the best defense in the NFL last season. And I understand that, now it's the Steve Wilkes show instead of the D'Amico Ryans show. Personnel is slightly different. They're missing some guys like Ufunga, but for the most part, this is the same group of players. And I just think that we get so biased visually by how a defense looks when it gets carved up, when they're not getting quick pressure. I think Dallas are maybe the cleanest example of that. Dallas are being talked about as one of the 3 or 4 best defenses in the league, and then look just atrocious against Green Bay when Parsons and Lawrence can't get home. I think there is an element of that where Detroit and Green Bay are really good at preventing quick pressure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think this Niners defense has been a little bit exposed where if Bosa isn't getting home, if he isn't wreaking havoc, if Armstead, Chase Young aren't doing the same thing, then these guys, they get exposed on the back end. Ambry Thomas hasn't had a good stretch. At the moment, Diomedol Lenore isn't particularly frightening or imposing, and they have a backup safety as well in Brown. So I think that the question is, do you think that Mahomes, and it's not going to look like the Tampa Bay Super Bowl for him where the Chiefs' offensive line was so bad that it just wrecked the game, like there was just no hope whatsoever, but do you think that Bosa and co will be wreaking havoc in this game to the point where the Niners' defense actually looks like a strength?
It's kind of be weird to say this, but it kind of depends how it's called.
Yep.
You watch the tape on the Chiefs' offensive line, particularly their tackles. They're getting away with some pretty aggressive pass protection holding, and if it's called tightly, then that's going to be pretty difficult for for sort of the matriculating style of offense that the Kansas City Chiefs are running right now. That'll break down if you have 10-yard penalties for holding, every other drive. That's going to be a problem. I would say that your points about the Niners defense and just the talent standpoint are very fair. Like, this is last year's team, except you add Hargrave. And you add Chase Young. Like, now you can find moments of tape where neither of those guys covered themselves in glory. But I would say that just in general, the talent mismatch exists at basically every single part of the game. Offensive line for the Chiefs against the defensive line for the Niners is very clearly advantaged Niners. I don't think that the pass catchers for the Chiefs are good enough to win any type of 1v1 versus what is a solid Niners pass defense. And then you have enough skill on offense that the talent check marks are almost unanimously in favor of the Niners here, which is why I think they ought to be favored by 3. Really, it's just the X factors and the intangibles of Mahomes coming into this game with much more experience and sort of a level of quality of quarterback play at the in playoff settings that's just, we haven't seen it since Brady. It's rare air to be that cool and that good in the most pressure-filled moments, and so I did some soul searching over the weekend, trying to remember or even think of like the last time I really went hard fade against Pat Mahomes in the playoffs, and I don't think I've done it. I'm kind of the guy that just sort of lines up and says, "Oh, Brady's in the Super Bowl, we'll bet Brady. Mahomes is in the Super Bowl, bet Mahomes." And I think this is kind of the first time I'm really ready to deviate from that and to believe that the talent overall for the Niners is enough to win the day.
Yeah, and I think a lot of also the deification of Mahomes in the playoffs. 1, it is warranted, but then 2, this season, I do think there are some chinks in the armor.
Sure.
In that, okay, he eviscerated Buffalo, but against the Buffalo defense that was heavily wounded.
Yes.
He eviscerated Miami, but against the Miami defense that had no pass rushers whatsoever that were left. And then against the Ravens, he had an excellent first half, and then they did absolutely nothing in the second half. They didn't score. I think they had 8 first downs total in the half. They just couldn't get anything going. And as good as Mahomes has been, like a lot of that in the playoffs has been he's avoided turnovers completely at all. And if you regress to what he normally does from a turnover perspective, which is still not much, it just doesn't look quite as good. So I think that perhaps there is, and look, that is 3, I guess, rationalizations for 3 different games, but it could certainly come to the fore in Vegas on Sunday. So, look, I think the Super Bowl, ultimately, what it will come down to is, we've talked about this before, but if Brock Purdy plays like the guy who was a minus 250 MVP favorite going into Week 16, if he plays at the level that got him to that point, the way he played against Dallas on Sunday Night Football, the way he played against the Jags, the way he played against Tampa, then the Niners are probably going to win the game because I think they have more talent. But there is a non-zero chance that Purdy just completely implodes, like he imploded against Baltimore, like he imploded in the first half against Green Bay. I don't think he imploded against Detroit. I just think that the Detroit were just getting a lot of pressure and collapsing the pocket, and the Niners didn't have a great schematic answer for that early. But if that happens, then yeah, he's going to lose to Patrick Mahomes, who is, for whatever we think is going to happen with the Chiefs, Mahomes isn't going to lose his head. Mahomes is not going to be seeing ghosts in this game, and there is a chance that Purdy will. And it's difficult to handicap the young brain of Brock Purdy.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. We can probably pre-record our reaction pod on Monday. Like, if Mahomes wins, it's like, yeah, duh. Mahomes was a dog. That was obviously the right answer. And if the Niners win, it's like, yeah, the Chiefs are who we thought they were. They were a broken offense and they were a flawed defense. And they got here based on ultimately, like, the more I ruminate on that Ravens game, the Ravens, they gave that game to the Chiefs more than the Chiefs won it. The self-inflicted wounds and just in general, a little bit cleaner second half performance from that offense, and all of a sudden this is Ravens Niners and not Chiefs Niners. So Chiefs, it takes luck to get to this point of the season for every team every year, and I think ultimately the talent advantage is what you have to ride with here, as you have 2 weeks to prepare. You have one of the best, if not the best, offensive coaching mind going in the game with Kyle Shanahan calling the plays, and just a unit that is capable of scoring 40 points.
Yep. I think the last thing too before we move on is that, okay, what do the Chiefs do? They blitz a ton. They blitz at a top 5 rate in the league. Brock Purdy is the number 1 quarterback in the NFL against the blitz by EPA per play. What do the Chiefs really suffer at? It's the defense. They run defense. Christian McCaffrey, Kyle Shanahan, you would think that they will take advantage of that. So I do think there are some matchup things. It's just whether Purdy completely melts. And I don't think he will. Jerick McKinnon is designated to return from IR. Do you think this does anything for Kansas City offense?
I guess it makes me more inclined to look at passing attempts overs for Mahomes. If it's the game state that we're kind of thinking about, he becomes much more of a threat in the screen game. And I don't know that that's ultimately the way you want to attack the Niners defense, but I could definitely see, kind of using McKinnon as sort of the relief safety valve in a game state where there's just not a lot of rushing attempts to be had for the Chiefs in the second half, which is kind of the way I think this is going to go. So, McKinnon, he takes away from target share from Pacheco. He makes some of the interesting kind of, we'll get to it in a bit here, some of the exotic markets. I think there's ways you can take advantage of this to a degree. But, in a comeback mode where you're facing the teeth of the pass rush for the Niners, I think you're going to see a lot more McKinnon out there than you would see Pacheco.
Okay, yeah, and I think that Pacheco set at 66.5 rushing yards. I think that is a decent proxy for, if you like, the Chiefs. If you think the Chiefs are going to win this game, then Reed, I think, to his detriment somewhat, has really leaned on the run in these second halves when they do have a lead. So it's pretty difficult to envision a same-game parlay of Pacheco under Chiefs' money line.
Sure.
Even more so than usual, because given, obviously, that running backs are correlated with victory in terms of the yards that they accumulate. All right. One another sweat during Super Bowl week. Drew, we have you covered with a special edition of Bet the Edge on Thursday night. Join us on our NFL on NBC YouTube channel at 9 p.m. Eastern for an NFL Awards watch-along and find out how we feel about the winners for Coach of the Year, Comeback Player, and much more. It's going to be an interesting human character study of the way my face contorts. Be like a Philip Seymour Hoffman film, watching me squirm during this broadcast, particularly if it starts to go south. Very much need chalk in that one. I know you'll be sweating out Myles Garrett as well, though I think, fingers crossed, that I think that one might be done. All right, let's talk about prop markets in the Super Bowl, some of these Super Bowl firsts. First drive, first team to score, over under yards on first completion. So Chiefs first drive, punt plus 125, touchdown plus 230, field goal attempt plus 320, and a turnover on downs or safety is plus 650. Is there anything particularly inspiring to you there, just thinking about how good the Chiefs' scripted offense has looked in these playoff games?
Yeah, that's a fair point. I guess just to kind of macro thinking about firsts, both of these coaches have pretty clear tendencies where they will defer if they win the coin toss. I think it's stronger likelihood that the Chiefs are going to defer. I mean, that's basically Andy Reid's DNA is deferring, winning the toss. I think Shanahan potentially could. Yeah, he could elect to be a little bit more aggressive on the coin toss and take the ball first and try to put together a nice drive and pad a little bit. I would like to see that personally as a Niners backer, but Kansas City Chiefs likely starting out a little bit slow, I think, is a realistic expectation. Again, like, we kind of know what you're going to get. You're going to get a Niners defense that asks you to cross the street 10 times in order to matriculate the ball down the field. Chiefs are, of course, capable of doing that, but I would generally expect that the run stop and the linebacking core, particularly Fred Warner, being active early in this game and really keeping the Chiefs in a bit of a bottle is a realistic expectation here. So Chiefs' first drive resulting in a punt would be my look, and Niners' first drive resulting in a touchdown.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, almost identical odds on the Niners side. Just the touchdown is slightly shorter and the punt slightly longer, as they are 2-point favorites in the game. Interested to see how this Niners offense looks, because it doesn't look great to start these Green Bay and Detroit games. And I think when you think about why it didn't, the Green Bay game, I think Brock Purdy was just a mess. Yeah. Throwing what could have been pick sixes, just didn't seem like he was all there, and it felt like the rain just rattled him. And that is something that I think, and I'm not sure if there's a way to take advantage of this betting-wise, but it does seem like with Purdy, when things start going wrong, they do really compound. With the Ravens, when he threw that first pick to Hamilton, and then it seemed like he was just way in his own head, and he just wasn't close to the player that he had been. Even the second half against the Bengals, thinking back, he kind of lost the plot there after a really great start to that game. And then against Green Bay, he struggled. And then Detroit in the first half, they made him look so small in the pocket, and that really defined the first half. It's what led to the kind of the tipped interception. And so I don't know if there is a way that Shanahan obviously is going to put him in the best possible situation that he can. I expect they're probably going to lean on McCaffrey a fair bit that first drive. I'd be surprised if Shanahan's going to be like, all right, Brock Purdy's dropping back to pass every play of this first drive. So I would expect that they're going to be relatively conservative and try to ease him into the Super Bowl, just given that he could let go of the rope more quickly than your typical quarterback who's minus 250 to an MVP in Week 16.
Yeah, I think that's all fair. It's important to note that a lot of Kyle Shanahan tendencies are sort of setting up explosive plays that happen later in the game. So expecting them to come out and give you all of the best, the most explosive and highest leverage stuff right out of the gate is not likely. It's probably going to be, like you said, a lot more conservatism. Try to test that running defense. I don't think you're going to get any of the Todd Monken approach that you saw with the Ravens, where Gus Edwards had 3 carries in the game. I think ultimately it's going to be proved. Number one, Chiefs defense proved to us that you have the ability to stop the run. You can win in the trenches. And then number two, prove that you're capable of making tackles in open field against our yak monsters. And so, I would expect that there's a lot of prove it to me out of the the Niners testing the Chiefs in the first opening frames of the game, and then on the other side of the ball with the Chiefs leaning into the run and being very physical to start a couple of these games. I would expect that just in general the Niners are able to meet that level of intensity and hopefully kind of get a key stop. So I don't have a ton of sense that this is going to be a wide open, high scoring early game. In fact, I like a couple weird exotic props like no team scores in the first 6.5 minutes, first quarter under. I think this is one where we could get a little bit of a slow burn out of the gate.
Yeah, and I think that as well, just tied to that, everyone now is just kind of is treating this Chiefs offense like the offense that it was last year. Like, I'm sorry, 18 weeks of the regular season have to matter for something. And this team, just outside of a kind of a hot stretch at portions, the start of the season where they went off against a bad Chargers defense, against a Bears defense that was really struggling to start the year. I mean, this offense was really healthy throughout the season. And I just can't shake, I was very invested in Mahomes MVP early on in the season. Just watching this offense just grind to a halt over and over again against Miami and Germany. They struggled against the Eagles in that game, and the Eagles pass defense, which was horrific. the Raiders game was kind of a joke on Christmas. They just couldn't do anything at all. We had earlier today, I interviewed Aidan O'Connell on Fantasy Football Happy Hour, and he was just kind of bemused, like, I didn't need to throw the ball at all in that game. We were just dominating. So I just don't think you can throw that out. So I just expect that there will be more struggles, perhaps than anticipated. First team to score market, the Niners -122, Chiefs +102. Anything that tickles?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously lean Niners here because of the obvious, right? The plan A, what everyone will conclude watching all of the Chiefs tape, how you want to attack them, should be a success. This should work. And I don't think you're going to have to go into your bag and find key adjustments if you're Kyle Shanahan early in this game. I think you're going to be able to move the ball. You're going to be able to get a score. Now, I don't know if you're going to be as efficient in the red zone as we've seen the Niners throughout the balance of the season. The Chiefs have outstanding secondary, certainly. Again, it's not unlikely to see some explosive plays early. So it may be a field goal ultimately. I mean, it's an indoor environment. Ball flies. I don't know if you knew this. So there's actually kind of elevation here relative to all of the other games, all the other stadiums besides Denver, which are close to sea level. We are a little high here, the protected environment of the Roomba in the desert is good for field goals. So I think you're going to have a high likelihood that the Niners get on the board first, get on the board early, and whether it's a field goal or touchdown, fingers crossed for me that it's a touchdown. I would lean them pretty heavily in this market just because, again, like the answers are easy for them.
Yep.
Like they're not going to have to get tested early in this contest, whereas the Chiefs are going to have to find ways into this Niners defense that I think could take them a couple of quarters.
Okay, let's have a look at a couple of these other prop markets. Over under yards first completion, Purdy set at 10.5, Mahomes set at 8.5. No surprise there necessarily. The gap, given that Brock Purdy, I think his yards per attempt ended up being an NFL record, right? It was like 9.9.
Yeah.
This is yards per completion, but don't mind the under there, just given that you would think that Shanahan's not going to have him throw deep the first throw of the Super Bowl. Maybe get him an easy one to get going. And then first reception market, Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice are the two favorites there, just because the Chiefs' offense is more streamlined than the Niners' offense. Anything that jumps out to you here?
We agree. Under on both first reception yardage, under on both for me. Okay. I think you could see you almost certainly you're going to see running back screens early, and I rate the tackling ability of the Chiefs fairly high, particularly their corners and some of their off-ball linebackers. They're good tacklers, so keeping a little bit of a bottle on first reception yardage is likely, and similarly, I think Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw running amok in the second level there is pretty solid to keep screen game kind of in the bottle for Kansas City as well. So obviously Kelce is the safety blanket for Patrick Mahomes, and if you have a little bit of a conservative game plan coming out of the gate for Andy Reid, and it's Pacheco run, and 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, almost certainly Kelce's number gets called. Kelce, I think, is maybe the only player that I have any interest whatsoever in overs for this Super Bowl among all of those markets that are up right now. And I mean, the answers are pretty straightforward there as well. Like, you're not going to get it done with your wide receiver group. They haven't gotten it done all year. Maybe they can make a play or two during this game, but you're not going to rely on them in the key moments. It's going to be Kelce. So, he could very well see 12 targets in this one, and it would not shock me. And so I think he's pretty easily the right call on first reception for the Chiefs.
Okay, let's look at first touchdown scorer, which will be no doubt a very heavily bet market in the public. Christian McCaffrey is your favorite at +360, Isaiah Pacheco +600, and then Kelce, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle. Any wacky theory about a first touchdown scorer?
You can put a line through, I think, a number of the wide receivers for San Francisco.
Okay, line through.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah, let's toss Brandon Ayuk.
Okay.
Let's toss Deebo Samuel. I think you definitely want to consider George Kittle in the 10-1 range. I know that Travis Kelce is not a very sexy pick either in the 7-1 range, but he's going to be the guy that gets focus when they're in the red zone. Christian McCaffrey is rightfully chalk here. I think he probably will get the first touchdown. If you want me to take a little bit of a longer shot, I don't mind getting wild with George Kittle at 10-1. And you want to get real weird, Brock Purdy rushing touchdown, He obviously has shown a knack for scrambling all of a sudden, and has a little bit more life in those legs. And if he finds the end zone via scramble, I don't think we should be surprised.
Okay, Brock Purdy, 30-1, first touchdown scorer with his legs. Don't mind it. All right, before we get to coaching hires and next year's Super Bowl, join the party on the PGA Tour at TPC Scottsdale this week as Scotty Scheffler goes for his third straight title at the Waste Management Phoenix Open. Check out all the big drives, hole outs, and rowdy fans on the 17th green on NBC Golf Channel, as well as Peacock, where you can stream the entire tournament. All right, best, worst NFL coaching hires, and anyone you'd back or fade right now. Just running through these. The biggest one, I think, from a splash perspective, the Chargers getting Jim Harbaugh, Dan Quinn to the Commanders, then Raheem Morris, David Canales, Gerard Mayo, Antonio Pierce, Mike McDonald, and Brian Callahan, also new hires. Do you have any angle on any of these?
I think these were all largely good hires. The one sort of head scratcher was Dan Quinn, not because he doesn't deserve another shot at head coach, but the way that they're conducting populating that offensive, war room is a little strange. Bringing in Cliff Kingsbury while not really having finality on Eric Bieniemy one way or the other is a little bizarre. And just in general, the Commanders, the way they conducted their search, seemingly very pointed towards Ben Johnson before not landing him, is a little bit unusual. So that one I got my eyebrows raised. All the rest of these I thought were pretty solid. The one that I think is kind of the most interesting is definitely Dave Canales for the Panthers. The Panthers were a disaster last year for multiple reasons, obviously, but they've basically, there is no way around it. They have to figure out how to get Bryce Young to play at a minimum replacement, above replacement level NFL quarterback. He would not shock you to know he had the worst total EPA generated of any player in the NFL last year. And I think a ton of that does come down to coaching and development. And so Dave Canales kind of resurrecting Baker Mayfield's career in Tampa Bay and in general having a softest division, I think is the one that I'm the most intrigued by. He also is keeping a lot of that defensive staff together, and with a healthier campaign from some very talented players on the defensive side of the ball, any type of improvement out of what you're getting at the quarterback position should help the Panthers make a pretty meaningful step forward. So that was kind of the one that I thought was the most interesting outside the box hire, and one that has the potential to really bear some significant fruit. How about you?
Yeah, I always think about this stuff just purely in terms of the Coach of the Year market, because I think it's the easiest and cleanest way to bet this, to bet around this information. And to me, I always now think of this market through the lens of who are people going to want to vote for, and what is the story that can really take hold if they have the win improvement to justify giving someone Coach of the Year. So it became pretty clear early on this season that I thought anyway, the three guys who had a lot of juice in Coach of the Year were Dan Campbell, Mike McDaniel, and D'Amico Ryans.
Sure.
Those were the three who just had narratives that were just super compelling to people, I think.
Yep.
D'Amico, self-evident in that the Houston Texans were the most moribund franchise in the NFL, had the number one pick last year, and if he could get them to double-digit wins, then it was just going to be an easy case. Dan Campbell with the Lions, obviously, though they tailed off towards the end. I think that Thanksgiving game and the second game against Chicago, which they lost, really kind of dented their image. And then Mike McDaniel, who just the coaching, you either have to have an amazing story or the coaching has to be really self-evident in the way that when you watch them. And just the Dolphins with that offense, it was very self-evident. So when I look through now, what are the easy stories? What are the things that I think will captivate people? Jim Harbaugh leading the Chargers to the division is going to be a very compelling story if he does that, particularly because their win total was so deflated. If Dave Canales can fix Bryce Young and they win a bad division, then that's almost certainly your Coach of the Year, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think that's kind of viable given that they have a good defense. And Bryce Young was the number one pick for a reason. The reason D'Amico Ryans is very likely going to win Coach of the Year is because C.J. Stroud hit his 95th percentile outcome or whatever, 99th percentile outcome. And Bryce Young, there is a number one pick in there somewhere. And then the other one would be, Raheem Morris. The Falcons won 7 games. They have a ton of talent on that roster. Don't know what the quarterback situation would be, but if he goes from like 7 wins to the 13-4 division champ, then I think that would be a compelling story as well.
Yeah.
And potentially not all that improbable.
No,
I think
we completely agree. And honestly, the fact that we are narrowing in on the NFC South shouldn't surprise anyone. Right? Like Gerard Mayo, like he may be the next Bill Belichick. He may have a great career. He's in the AFC East. He's in deep trouble. Like this schedule is brutal. Same with Harbaugh. Harbaugh has got to go through Pat Mahomes. Good luck, buddy. So I think the fact that we're picking on the softest division in football is the right way to approach it. And Dave Canales is going to be the price that I'm looking for because, again, get a couple wide receivers in there, improve the quality of play of the offensive line, and develop Bryce Young into a bona fide starter, and you win.
Yep, no, I like it. Okay, we'll get to next year's Super Bowl market later in the week, but for now we are done. Reminder that we will have shows from Radio Row every day through Saturday. Tomorrow we'll have Rufus Peabody from Bet the Process and Unabated Sports coming to join us on the set. But in the meantime, don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks everyone listening to us in podcast form. Don't forget to rate and subscribe. And also a reminder that you can listen to all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. I'm Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick on Radio Row in Las Vegas. We'll see you tomorrow.